We're going to go over a quick agenda, if you will. Please, Cedric. So, Hakuone. We all know that in our culture, here in our place, names are important. Owai, Koino, Huyu. Hakuone was given to us, given to OHA and the project by Kumu Sai Bridges. Kumu, are you here tonight? Aloha, Kumu's in the back. Mahalo. And yeah. And if we look at the name and we dissect it a little bit and take it apart, Haku is compose, One, sands of my birth, and the sentiment of being, in having our toes in Aina, and this concept of creating something from Aina, something new, continuing this living creation that is Aina. There are also ties to Ho'one, which is the pumice stone that our kupuna used to rough out or smooth out rough edges in implements like ipu. And I think very symbolic, as this aina is rough. And that's why OHA is looking to develop this project and turn it into a beautiful resource for our people. So, let's begin. The decline of our people, the Hawaiian people, really took off with the illegal coup d'etat of the Hawaii's kingdom, led by the children of missionaries, as well as plantation owners. They betrayed their oaths that they swore to the Hawaiian kingdom. They broke their allegiance, and they were aided by the U.S. military. This led to the imprisoning, beating, and even the murder of Kanaka, lawfully attempting to free our queen and our nation. We saw the consistent and persistent erosion of our language, our culture, and it was brutally reinforced in all sectors, including in our schools. The intentional effort to undermine Hawaiian empowerment in business and politics by selling Hawaii's people on this American dream. So you had kupuna, like mine, who saw really the end of an Olelo lineage. My great-grandmother, Vicky E.E. Rodriguez, was the last in our line, in our ohana, to Olelo, to have Olelo as her first language. And you'll hear my Auntie Nina till today talk about that struggle and that pain, that disconnection between mele, which is her gift, right, and being able to sing mele in Olelo, and still having that disconnection. And that was true for many families throughout our generations here in our own homeland. Into statehood, we see Hawaiians rise to the top of almost every negative list there is, from the most incarcerated, disenfranchised, sickly, and poor in our own homeland. Finally, in 1980, a turn. After much struggle and fighting, the Hawaiian Renaissance began. A rekindling of culture, politics, a fire within our people, hokulea, punanaleo, and the creation of OHA, to name a few. We also see Act 273 passed and the codification of the 20% of PLT, or ceded lands revenues, that the state must pay to OHA annually. Despite this, no money came for decades. When it did come, it's not exactly what was owed. Until today, the calculation of these revenues is still in dispute. Then in 2012, the state proposes a land deal. They say it's valued at $200 million, which is about what the state owed to OHA at the time for its pro rata share. This deal was presented as a take it or leave it, and remember, at this time, the state was out of money. Right? This was the time of Furlough Fridays. OHA was further pressured to take this deal because it had experienced firsthand non-payment, unfulfilled promises by the state. In addition, through its own due diligence, OHA had discovered that there was $65 million in damages to the revetment and bulkhead, which we'll get to a map later, that was undisclosed at the time of the deal. If OHA was paid the money instead of offered this land, OHA would have done what any organization does and followed its practice to reinvest. If we assume a very conservative 7% annually, that money today would be worth $400 million. Cedric? Let's first start with that map I promised you. If you look to the right of the screen, circled in yellow, parcels A and B is where the damage is to the revetment and bulkhead of $65 million. Again, undisclosed by the state at the time of the deal. Cedric? And again, a visualization, $400 million today is what the value of that money would have been. Cedric? So at the time, the state legislature did make overtures that the residential repeal would be on the table in order for OHA to develop the property to make the stated value in lieu of what was owed. As stated in committee reports at the time, entitlements could be obtained at a future date, and that this deal alone did not represent a final settlement of what was owed. Here are some of the documents. We can go quickly through them, Cedric. This is a small list of the program's grants, scholarships, and other funds and resources that OHA provides to our people. Hakuone is vital in developing a stable economic foundation for continuing to serve the mission of OHA and care for Kanaka. This project is fair and just. Others can build in this area. Why not Hawaiians? This contributes to solving the housing crisis. This will be an economic driver for much of the work that is yet to come. It is also a return of a Native Hawaiian stronghold in urban Honolulu for culture, business, science, and the arts. Let's take a look at the master plan. So, the total lands in Kaka'ako-Makai are 221 acres. OHA owns 30. That's only 14% of the total lands in Kaka'ako-Makai. Right now in the plans, there are 11 public access points as part of the current plan, and that's indicated by dotted lines. I know it's difficult to see, particularly in the back of the room, because it's white, and for some reason, the color of the screen tonight is yellow. But you can see them. There's also a red line protruding out towards the ocean, indicating the 11 public access points, with ample parking right now planned at 3,600 spaces. You can see that low-level retail and commercial uses are along the ocean front, there in red. As you move closer to Ala Moana Boulevard, indicated by the yellow and greenish colors, that's what is scheduled for low and mid-rise residential, and up to 400 feet height, the closest you get to Ala Moana Boulevard. And that's the only three parcels that will have residential on it for this project. OHA is planning for a Hawaiian Cultural Center, the first of its kind in Hawaii. Everybody has one. I think it's probably time that we did too. The purple line here indicates a large oceanfront public promenade. And this will connect to the state's Lay of Parks plan, which is an endeavor to connect all the South Shore waterfront for public and pedestrian access from Waikiki to Pearl Harbor. Right now, there are 47 acres of parklands, and OHA will be adding 10 additional acres. So this is a east to west view, just for density sake, so you can kind of get an idea. Next, Cedric. And a promenade view, looking out towards the ocean from Ala Moana Boulevard. As a Hawaiian landowner, OHA is subject to the same laws and rules relating to development and property management as any other entity in the islands. OHA is acutely aware of the environmental concerns relating to Kaka'ako, resulting from nearly a century of mistreatment by prior tenants, both private and public. In 2018, OHA received a $400,000 grant from the Environmental Protection Agency to assess the conditions for select parcels. And there was indeed contamination from previous use for waste, incineration, and landfill. Indeed, environmental impact statements and similar evaluations are required and are a part of this project. Environmental damage and hazards will be remediated, as is required by law, and is the right thing to do. It's unfair to single out land owned and stewarded by Hawaiians, especially when our values and culture demand we take a long-term view of Aina. The bottom line is, Native Hawaiians are entitled by law to determine how best to shape our cultural, social, and economic well-being, and to ensure the health and prosperity of our people using lands that belong to us. OHA will develop this Aina. OHA doesn't need permission to develop it. It's the repeal of residential restrictions that OHA is asking for in order to, 1, address the severe housing crisis in Hawaii, 2, provide for additional revenue to execute its mission of serving Native Hawaiians, regardless of uses. The Aina will be developed and OHA will do it as Kanaka. That means addressing the pilau conditions in which the land was handed over and everything else that Aina Ma'alama comes with, because we are Hawaiian, and that is our way. I'd like to mahalo you now for the short time I've been given to present this to you. Please welcome to the microphone Chair of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Auntie Hulu Lindsay.
Aloha mai kākou. Mahalo nui to everyone for taking the time from your busy schedules and being here with us today for this very important meeting. We appreciate and mahalo Senators Michelle Kidani and Senator Maile Shimabukuro for making this facility available today. Thank you. We're also very grateful to all of the staff members who have worked so hard handling the arrangements for this meeting so that we're able to welcome you all here this afternoon. Welcome is what OHA's plans for Kaka'ako Makai are all about. I have heard so many of you speak of a time when your kupuna once lived and worked and played in Kaka'ako. Pualeilani Kamahoahoa and her family live in Kaka'ako today, but she said at one of our town hall meetings that she feels like a museum exhibit. Hawaiians hold events and perform, but they mostly don't live there. She is the exception, and she is tired of being the exception. As Native Hawaiians, we want to feel welcome in our own land. But the current laws make us feel most unwelcome. Hakuone is Hawaiian land. Yet here we are once again asking legislators for permission to develop our land. There is so much irony and pain in the fact that we are here at all. The lands we now call Hakuone were given to OHA to settle a long overdue debt. For years, the state had been delinquent. It had not given OHA its share of ceded land revenues as provided by law. Remember that it took the state more than 40 years to give Hawaiians anything from the public land trust revenues. In 2012, at a time when the state was struggling financially, it offered OHA the 30 acres in Kaka'ako Makai in lieu of monies owed. We accepted the deal rather than be left with nothing. We also accepted the deal because there was a clear understanding that in order for us to realize the $200 million value ascribed to these lands, lawmakers would have to amend the restrictions on residential development. Fast forward a decade, the restrictions on residential development have not been lifted. even though committee reports from 2012 clearly show that lawmakers knew the law would need to be amended to allow OHA to derive the full value of the land. As Kanaka, it is humiliating to have to ask for permission to do what mainland developers are allowed to do with no restrictions just across the street from us. We are not Howard Hughes. We should not be treated like any other developer. We are simply asking for recognition of our rights as the indigenous people of these islands. We are asking for the right to self-determination, for the right to develop these lands as ours, without restrictions that do not exist for the rows of luxury towers constructed and continuing to be constructed right across the street for the rich and wealthy of the world. We have been patient, but how much longer do our elected officials want us to wait? There are too many houseless on these islands. It is very painful to see that Native Hawaiians make up such a large percentage of the houseless. OHA has a sacred duty to ensure that its beneficiaries can thrive. For that, we need to start by making sure our people have a shot at being housed. Hakuone will offer a range of housing options for working people. It will include housing that Hawaiians can actually afford. Only when that happens will Hawaiians once again feel welcome in a place that was once the sands of their birth. All we are really asking for is justice for Hawaiians. Justice for Hawaiians from their own state government. Justice for Hawaiians in our own native homeland. All we seek is a pono resolution, fairness, and ultimately an upholding of a public land trust agreement that this state is constitutionally obligated and required to uphold. One of the reasons today's meeting is so important is because we know and have seen a campaign of misinformation circulating that absolutely misrepresents what OHA is doing. And this is coming from groups of people, including at least one lawmaker, and those presenting themselves as protectors of Hawaii. We have been outraged to read the absolute distortions of OHA's plans for Hakuone, put out by people who know better, people who have been fully briefed about Hakuone. So let's counter the deliberate misinformation with the truth. Each of you can help. I hope you will. My hope is that this afternoon's event will give you more insight into what the two bills, Senate Bill 736 and House Bill 270, are all about. And with that knowledge, I hope that you will speak to your family, your friends, and your neighbors, both Hawaiians and non-Hawaiians. What is good for Hawaiians is good for this state. Most of all, I hope you will let your elected officials know that after years of delay, passing these bills this session is urgent. It is the pono thing to do. Mahalo nui loa for your time, your interest, and your action on this critical project. Meka mahalo piha a meka aloha no. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lisa Grove. I'm a pollster. First project I think I did in Hawaii was Senator Akaka's first race for the U.S. Senate. I was 6 at the time. I wish I was not. I was older. I live on Lanai, and I've polled thousands and thousands of people in Hawaii on a wide range of issues, and just want to report in on some work that we did. We were in mid-November, so we were in the field the 11th through the 22nd. We did a real beefy sample on the island of Oahu, 743 interviews, and it was phone, online, and SMS. So for all the people who go, well, I don't answer my phone, so I don't take polls, we had other ways of finding you. We also weighted the data to reflect the true composition of the Oahu electorate. And I'm just going to show you a couple of slides. You don't have to endure a lot, but I just got a couple I want to show you. First of all, when we described the deal, the proposal. We said, talked about commercial and artisan maker spaces, talked about eating establishments with a focus on Native Hawaiian food, talked about amenities that locals could take advantage of, and that's the first thing people saw, which was the first real point that resonated with folks is this isn't being built for someone else, it's being built for us. Because we talked about grocery stores and medical clinics, we talked about kapuna care, daycare, and daycare for our keiki, and those things really resonated with folks. They wanted to know if there was enough parking. Because they were excited about it. We also talked about housing that's affordable, includes workforce housing as well as higher end residences, and the cultural center, and talked about that. So when we asked people, do you support or oppose it, we had 78% say they support it. And that was a majority of folks from every major demographic subgroup was in support. There's a lot of talk sometimes about, well, downtown Honolulu couldn't possibly want this. Well, the numbers were actually higher. It was 78 with everyone across Oahu. It was 84% in downtown Honolulu. We also then showed the renderings that Ian shared with you earlier. If we can go to the next slide. Because a lot of it was done online. We could actually show people pictures and that sort of thing. We said, and then went on, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead to the legislation. We also said that housing is currently prohibited because the community rejected it by other developers to build resorts and housing, successfully pushed legislation banning housing units. Do you favor or oppose the repeal? And we had 64% said that they supported the residential repeal. Those numbers in downtown Honolulu were at 60%. So again, majorities of every major demographic, race, ethnicity, age, gender, region were in support of the residential repeal legislation. We can go to the next slide. And one of the things that we kept hearing over and over again was it's their land. They should get to do with it what they want. And that was even more profound because people in Hawaii know that when the Native Hawaiians come to the Aina that they're going to take extra good care of it. And the other thing that happened, and we did qualitative research, I'm not reporting on that, that's just opinions, but to help us write the survey, we would start and say, well, this started to happen with the state. And everyone went, well, then they must have been hurting the Hawaiian people because the public, and this is Haole, AJA, Hawaiians, all races and ethnicities, believe that the Hawaiian people have not gotten their fair due, especially as it relates to the Aina. And so every sentence that started out with a deal involving the state, they said this must have hurt the Hawaiian people. I was honestly surprised to see the level of understanding and concern and anger coming from broad swaths of the electorate. And I just think it's important that we keep that in mind. And we heard that from some of the comments from some of our folks. I think we've got one more slide. Yep. So we also looked at the who's responsible for taking care of the situation and the remediation work. Said that the OHA is in the process of conducting financial analysis, and said that they discovered that there's problems with the bulkhead, impact of waves and erosion. We wanted to make sure we were sort of spelling out the situation, deferred maintenance, and that the state of Hawaii knew about these problems as they were negotiating the land deal. And what we found was that, again, good majorities of people feel like it is the state's kuleana to do the remediation work and not OHA's. That's another one where we had majority support across every major demographic group. It's hard to find issues in Hawaii where people are so much in agreement. This is one of the few. As a person who looks at lots of thorny issues, this one was much less thorny than I honestly anticipated going into it. There's just a lot of consensus among the public on this. Thanks.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Ann Chung. I'm the government affairs person, consultant for Ku'ilei. I want to thank all of our representatives that are sitting right in the front here, along with speaker. I'd like to personally thank Representative Daniel Holt for introducing the House bill. Senator And on the Senate side, the Hawaiian caucus members, and especially Senator Michelle Kidani. I know OHA has tried a couple of times for the same piece of legislation, and this time we have done a huge amount of due diligence. I want to express to you that we have had numerous key partner, stakeholder, community meetings with over 400 participants. And all of these, we are trying to get their input on what it is that they feel is right for Kaka'ako. And again, as you saw with the polling data, 78% of Oahu residents and voters support some form of residential on Hakuone. Next slide, please. So this is what is in the bill, in short. What we are really asking the legislature to do is to do the right thing, right the wrong that was done in 2012. The main thing is to lift the residential ban. We really want to thank everyone for scheduling the bill on the Senate side, and we urge our House lawmakers to at least allow for some public discussion in committee for this very important issue. We are asking also to lift the height and density for 3 parcels only. Those that are the closest to Ala Moana Boulevard, where 100, 150 feet away, you've got enormous towers. We're also looking at increasing the density and the height restrictions to build as many affordable and workforce housing as we can. Those are the key asks. We are talking about 30 acres out of 221 of the entire Kaka'ako Makai side. Most will remain as park space. They are owned by the city and county or the state. The only other landowner there is Kamehameha Schools. And they only have a very few lots, and they are the ones closest, again, to Ala Moana Boulevard. We are not talking about the shoreline. And in fact, in one of the community meetings, some of the friends of Kewalos were there, and they specifically looked at the map. We shared all of this information with them already. We have sat with them. We have opened up hours of communication with them. And they even pointed to the map and said, wow, there's 11 access ways. That's more than we have today. And I quote that. That was from one of the Friends of Kewalos. So there is a great deal of misinformation going on. What we're asking for is to do the right thing. And these lands in 2012 were given in lieu of cash. So if this state had provided cash instead of that land, and OHA had just put it into a very conservative 7% interest, they would have $400 million today. So that's where we're coming from. And we're also looking at $65 million, and that's a conservative estimate, for the bulkhead repairs and the revetments. OHA has even sent down divers to go down and look at the bulkhead to see what is wrong with it and what horrible condition that it is in right now and was in back in 2012. So we really urge everyone to take a look at this, talk to your friends, your family, your colleagues. What OHA wants to do is to take what is a toxic landfill land, clean it up, make it even better than they found it, and create a Hawaiian cultural center that will be the foundation for this entire development, for a really vibrant place for locals and Hawaiians to live, work, and play. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to have Ian come back.
Okay, I hear stomachs are rumbling. If you want to learn more, and this presentation will soon also be shared on the website. Our website is hakuone.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at HakuoneHI. Now we're going to get to the question and answer period. We have one microphone for responses and questions. It's here. Go ahead, please.
Representative Gene Ward on his way to another meeting, so I will be very brief, contrary to the usual stereotype that people have of me.
Wow.
First, a very, very brief comment. Having been here when the vote for the 200 million was there was a movement to have the 400 feet height built into the agreement. But, and I quote some of the members who are not in OHA now, they said, look, we don't want to be greedy. And my sense is that opportunity, the zeitgeist of that has passed. Just so you know that historically, that was one of the movements. Some of us were backing very strongly, and OHA said, look, we don't want to be greedy. That's the issue. Second point, and this is my question. Would you please consider some kind of a joint agreement with DHHL, which does not have to conform to county regulations, where if you want to go 500 feet or whatever, you can do it because you got the power if you get under the umbrella of DHHL. I just ask if you would seriously consider that, because that's an organization with the same intent as yours, but you've got to, as you said earlier, we got to follow all the regulations, we got to everything EPA to the T, but if you partner with DHHL, you guys can do this. Thank you.
Mahalo for that question and response. Who from the team wants to take that?
Please answer it.
Casey?
Aloha, I'm Casey Brown, the Chief Operating Officer for OHA. One of the questions I heard from Rep. Ward was the deal at the time given to OHA was OHA's response to not including any more I guess entitlements in the bill at the time was because they didn't want to get greedy. We have some other information that tells us that there was also a genuine fear that if the bill started to get altered or changed at any stage, that it could put it at risk. And so OHA was also very afraid of changing that bill. And Rep. Ward, I forget if there was another question in there. Was there another?
Yes, it was the potential partnership with DHHL.
Oh, okay, yeah. OHA is definitely considering all of its options in front of itself. That's certainly one of them. That would take some discussion, some research, and some deep partnering, but it's something that, of course, is on the table.
Mahalo. Any other questions? Anyone?
Hello, my name is Curtis Crabb. Today I have a picture here of me testifying before the public hearings there in 2010. For everybody's information, it was 2010 when these things started with the HCDA and the building. I represented the Point Panics Body Surfing Club with Dr. Michael Clicks, and we were advocates of stopping the development, any development on this side, because we feared, because there was Tony Ching, there was Brickwood Galateria, and there was Neil Hannes at the Kamehameha schools that wanted to develop high-rises there specifically. So we got that on the table, and they were going to do it. Millions of dollars spent in consulting. So we did, we got together with Ronnie Wame, good friend. We all loci together. We got the T-shirts and everything. We got ours. And we went out and we protested it. And we heated debate and whatnot. But anyway, that's the reason why it was stopped. There was no demons, nothing like that, okay? It just basically, that was the intention to stop it. Now, our Point Panics Body Surfing Club is for the development of these residential things. And I can speak on behalf. Dr. Michael Clicks just had a stroke. He's a PhD up at UH, massive stroke. And his wife, I said, deliver the message. We're going to develop housing for the Hawaiians. Now at Point Panic, you folks been there? How many been there? Okay, you know the brothers over there? They live there, okay? Mostly Native Hawaiian. We got a couple druggies, but where else is different, okay? We need to put Hawaiians on our land. And if it takes set aside Hawaiian only, joint use, rent to own, it doesn't matter. This is a potential to bring income to OHA and to get our people off the road. My son Kili was homeless in Maui for years. He just got out of prison, okay? And he is an exact example because of depression, high cost of homes. In a bit, he's a journeyman electrician. He's going to go back to work. He just got out. He's going back to work next week for American Electric, okay? This is the precipice where we need some place to come home to. You know, I'm fortunate. I had a house in Milani, you know, and now I got a homestead in Molokai, which you're probably going to hear about very soon in the news. And we all have this opportunity, but $1.2 million, my son Noé has 5 children. He's a journeyman electrician. He's in business, $2,500 a month rent with 5, okay? That's tough. So we've got to do this. And whatever we need to do, talk to your ohana and your legislatures. I hope the legislatures, I haven't met you yet. It was a whole different complexion back then. Governor Abercrombie hated HCDA, and it's where is it today? Right? Okay? So that wasn't the way to go. Buzzy Agard, the kupuna of Kaka'ako. You know who Buzzy Agard is? He was an Aku guy. All those Aku boats over there, Howard Hughes, and we can't demonize those guys because I build the IO Tower. I build Whole Foods. We're electricians, okay? Buzzy Agard, they came to him and said, what are we going to do, Buzzy? He said, keep it Hawaiian. What do you got? IO, right? Anybody know what an IO is? That's the Whole Foods Tower. It's named after a bird. It's that stilt you see walking. That's the IO. That's all Hawaiian. They're all getting Hawaiian names, so we've got to keep it. End of my discussion. Let's stop demonizing the ledge for preventing stuff because that wasn't the truth. We stopped it. Now we got to go be proponents for it. Okay, development. Okay, Ian? Wow. My boy's classmate. Good job.
Mahalo, Uncle. Ken?
Aloha, Ken Farm. I just had some questions, you know, because I was looking, I guess maybe the questions I have to ask are a little bit more in depth. But we're talking about, you know, on the affordable side, what are the percentage of that going to be affordable? What is that AMI? So, like, for example, if someone who's single at 60 AMI currently, they need to make $54,900 and their rent would be $1,470. Are we, when we're talking about workforce, are we starting at 80 and then going to 120? Like, you know, where in this whole part of that, does anybody can answer that? I mean, I'm for the intent. I just want to understand. You know, first I hear it's going to be for revenue generation, and I hear part of it's going to be affordable housing. But at what level of affordability are we looking at? And then I have other questions, but we'll start with that one. And also, just one other one in terms of the finance structure. Are we using LIHTC, new market tax credits? How is this being put together?
Sure. Thank you for that, Ken. So 2 questions. Casey, you want to go?
Mahalo, Ken. I can take the first question. So with regards to affordable units, there's 2 variables there. There's at what AMI, and then there's the amount of units itself, right? So in terms of the AMI, so HUD, in this case HCDA, has their ladder for AMI, and it goes from 140 down.
So we're going to use the HCDAs?
It's got to be under HCDAs because they're...
AMI, which is different from HHFBC's version. Okay.
Yeah. But again, like it really depends on the number of units we can build, right? So based on the number of units we can build, by law, OHA has to build 20%. Now, OHA would definitely try to build much more than that. The math has to pencil out. We have to be able to build market units so that we can subsidize the amount of affordable units. We cannot burn through our trust fund. And so based on the number of units, we can then pick, you know, what's the sensible AMI, and OHA would definitely intend to beat what HCDA's requirements are, you know, to go below, for sure, the 100% or 80% if it can, if the math pencils out. The second question was regarding some tax credits, and I'm not sure. I don't have a response for that.
Yeah, and you know, Ken, to just answer you briefly, you know, obviously for any deal that has to be on the table, right? So we won't know right now, but that's something that needs to be discussed once we find out how many units can be built, and then that deal has to be put together with the developer, right? Okay, any other questions?
Aloha. My name is Ilima De Costa, And I'm Kanaka Maole, but I am not a DHHL beneficiary, so I wouldn't qualify for those properties. And this is the reason why Hakuone is so attractive to someone like myself. Like Uncle's Ohana, I've suffered a couple of times with homelessness in my life as a result of divorce and my child being shot and killed. And I've had a lot of trouble being able to maintain my employment and also maintain my housing. I think that if I had more support, I probably wouldn't have such periods of homelessness, and I'd like to be able to see more Kanaka Maole get support when we're experiencing challenges in our lives. It's really distressing to me because I work for Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction, but I don't make enough money to be able to afford market rents right now. So basically, I would qualify for something like Section 8, even though my job is to help other people who are experiencing homelessness. We just don't have the funds. So I hope that Hakuone is built. I hope that we can change the law to be able to allow the residential. And I really do encourage everyone to consider how we can support our friends and family. Mahalo.
Mahalo. As there wasn't a question in there, I will not ask for, but kako oyu and what you say. And I don't think, I think by the sound of applause, I hope you feel that we all kako oyu in that. Anybody else? Any questions or comments? Yes, please.
Aloha mai ka ko o au no pole lani ka mahoahoa. Kua ni hanau ma ka u o Hawaii nui a kea. No au a me ko ohana ma ka ako. Mahalo nui e trustee Hulu Lindsay for speaking on my behalf. Yes, I am a resident of Kaka'ako. I was surprised by the reactions of others, although I get the Hawaiian live in Kaka'ako? What affordable housing you live in, sis? Is it because of work? Who gave you that land? Inherited. How much money they gave you? Why the questions in disbelief if my parents roamed and played from the falls of Waikahalulu and then coin dived off of Aloha Tower in the harbor reading the Navy ships that docked? My mother playing music off of Kewalo. My uncles at Point Panics probably with Anakala over there. Or my kupuna who worked loko ia from Ala Moana to Kalia. I'm still questioned. Kaka'ako is an area of the rising tides of foreign influence and development. Development is a funny word. A process of growth and advancement. If growth means constant construction of high rises and facilities that I can't afford or probably won't be allowed in, then so be it. Development. I'm not saying those residents high up there don't deserve it, but as a native Hawaiian, the values I cherish aren't appreciated, so what do I deserve? I'll give you an example of my day. I'm up early because the mirrored glass from the luxury high-rise next to me bounces into the sunrise into my bedroom. After getting ready, I walk my dog, well, maybe not, because some of my neighboring high-rises leave signs for a dog opihi not to walk on our grass. My husband leaves for work and drives a city bus down Kaka'ako streets with only 5% of native Hawaiian passengers on board, or maybe 4% because he's the Hawaiian on board. Our son goes to Honolulu High, McKinley High School, and is offered no Hawaiian Studies program, none. He loves football, but isn't allowed to play home games on their field due to inconveniences of nearby residents like parking, field lights, lack of funding for bleachers, blah, blah, blah. I teach Hawaiian Studies at Alawai Elementary, but I feel dumb because constantly teaching things simple like ahupua'a, my students' mauka is blocked by Makiki condos or blocked by makai by Waikiki hotels. None of these complications speak community. It only takes my complicated day to about 8:30 a.m. You can come catch me later to see how long my day goes. So why do I live in Kaka'ako? Sis, that's your choice to live there. So why do you live there and still complain? I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you where I'm at and what my lifestyle is. But I'm sharing where my lifestyle can be. Because I have the ability to see the lands I deserve through hope and faith. A close-knit community like I was raised with my kupuna in Ka'u. Right now, we are huddled away by our building fob key. Who owns a fob key here? Y'all know how a fob key works, right? Once you hit that fob key, whoever goes in stays in. You use the facilities within your own building. Everything else disappears. Not your problem, not your perspective. I ask for everyone to stop looking from the penthouses or unappetizing new shining forward thing and care for us alo ke alo, face to face. We deserve it, and apparently we're owed it. Yes, of course, I am definitely holding OHA accountable, so please don't think I'm buddy-buddy with somebody. But accountable to steward that land. That's the point. Someone needs to steward the land of our birth, not the square footage I may or may not be qualified for. Mahalo.
Mahalo, my friend. Mahalo for sharing with us. Any other questions, comments? Speak now, or for now, hold your peace. Going once? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn this meeting so that we can get some mea'ai outside.